This book was written in 1947. 1947.
Just look at this thing. Were we using this font?
What is this font? Good point. What the hell is that? 2800 BC. This passage about how shitty things are.
That's,
you know,
it's just like that could have. I mean, if you just gave me that quote, like I totally, that could be a tweet from somebody.
Yes.
Right? Like that's a boomer Facebook update.
No reader needs to be reminded that the world is full of strife and heartache. Men and women everywhere seek peace of mind and heart and wish desperately that they as individuals could do something toward lifting the heavy blanket of gloom that oppresses mankind. You and I can help. More than anything else, the world needs the healing influence of a great surge of simple thoughtfulness and kind-heartedness. Such a surge is beyond the power of the world's greatest rulers or statesmen. It must start with us as individuals. Right in our home communities, we average citizens can establish the spirit and set the pattern of a kindlier world. I invite you to join me in my hobby. Today we are covering Try Giving Yourself Away, a tonic for these troubled times. And troubled times, like we've talked about before, is not 2026.
No.
Despite the fact that people believe we are in deeply troubled times, which we may be, depending on how you feel about things. This book was written in 1947. 1947.
Just look at this thing. Were we using this font?
What is this font? Good point. What the hell is that? In any case, this book is really special, I think. It's written by a guy named David Dunn, which is actually a pen name, kind of like RHJ. There's no attribution to who this person really is. The real human being, and now I didn't actually write his real name down, but he was a very successful banker, businessman, philanthropist, and of course, best-selling author. This is the kind of book that you can pick up at any time, flip to a chapter, don't have to read them in order. The chapters are ultra short. You can probably finish them in 5 minutes or less, and you'll take a ton away from it. So I had boatload of notes, boatload of highlights. We won't be able to share them all this episode, but I really enjoyed working through it. And in many ways, it was kind of a nice departure from the typical sort of self-help lit that we've been, working on, like where people talk about mindset and, manifestation and all these other things. Like that wasn't this. And so you may also just appreciate the fact that this isn't like a traditional sort of like self-help or motivational book.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't judge a book by its cover. Okay. This was very good. I also listened to, so this one, I got a different experience. I listened to the audio because the book is, you got to dig a little bit deeper to find it online. It's like, wasn't on Amazon. I couldn't get it on Kindle. So I listened to the audiobook and it was great. First of all, the guy reading it, amazing. Like just very cheery.
Right,
I'll have to play it for you before you leave just a little bit. Delightful experience. And so much of this is like, it's basically just get out of your own head and help other people. If I could like summarize the message of this book, like you will be way happier if you get out of your own head and stop worrying about all your problems and just focus on helping the world, helping other people. It will all come back to you and your problems will find a way of working themselves out anyway. A lot of really good wisdom and anecdotes in this book, for sure.
Let's get it started with chapter 1. It starts out right off the bat. Like most people, I was brought up to look upon life as a process of getting. And if that isn't the truth, then I don't know what is. We always hear about go get the degree, get the job, get the house, get the money, get the spouse, get the partner, get the whatever. And he totally flips it on his head. And he says, I recommend giving away as an exciting and thoroughly satisfying hobby. In fact, if you will give it a good try, I'll practically guarantee you a happier life starting right away. And damn, that's a guarantee.
Yeah, well, I think he's right. Like, and I think there is science by this point that supports this too, that helping other people, serving others genuinely like makes you a happier person. Like I believe it's just like deeply ingrained in us as human beings. So I'm with him on this claim. I think it is totally true. And I think once again, this book being in the 40s, it's only increased since then. This idea of grind culture, hustle culture, you got to go out and get yours, but no, take a step back and try and make sure that you're being as pleasant a person as you can be and helping others too.
Chapter 2. Your giving away will, of course, have to be done in your own individual way based on the things you have to give. Some of us have spare time. Others have surplus mental or physical energy. Others have a special art, skill, or talent. Still others have ideas, imagination, the ability to organize, the gift of leadership. All of us can give appreciation, kindness, interest, loyalty, understanding, encouragement, tolerance, and a score of other little portions of ourselves. When I first started reading this book, and I even seeing this super cheesy title and cover, I was like, oh, so you just want to give away all our possessions, give away all your money, give whatever. Notice no mention of money here. This isn't about giving away money. It's not about riches or any of that stuff. It's literally just about you have skills and abilities and talents, and find a way to provide those to other people. And it doesn't have to be big. A simple act of a genuine thank you is plenty. Just give away gratitude.
This book was recommended by Zig, right? This
Correct.
is Zig Ziglar recommendation. Correct. So you know it's not going to be give everything away. That'd be communism. Zig hates communism. Had to make that point.
Good point. Good point.
But look, it feels way better to give away your talents and like thoughtfulness than it does just money. Like, you know, anyone can give away money, and it's not that that's a bad thing. And in some cases that can be obviously wildly helpful. But I think most people, if you've experienced this, when you take the time to be really thoughtful about something and go out of your way to especially give your talents, and you can see that making an impact like right away, something you're doing with your hands, helping somebody, like it feels great. It feels great. I think it is so much like, so I love that is a whole central focus of this book, is that it's not just about money. And I also love that he always frames it as a hobby, because that is how you can like a mental reset to keep it up all the time. Like, don't make it just something you do every once in a while. Like, hey, this is a hobby, like something you should be doing consistently.
I love too that he has a lot of very specific examples in the book. So like every chapter probably has 2 or 3 examples of what this could look like in practice. So it's not just this philosophical theory or whatever. And one of the examples he gives in this chapter is that if I particularly enjoy a book, a magazine article, or a play, I write a note to the author telling him or her of my enjoyment. Sometimes I receive an appreciative acknowledgement. More often I do not. It doesn't matter in the least. I am not collecting autographs. I am just keeping my giving away machinery in good working order. And this is something that would be so easy to do and have such a big impact on people. I was inspired by this specific passage to write Malcolm Gladwell, who's I'm a big fan of his. He's an author who writes books in a genre which I have also written a book in. And I just wrote him and saying like, dude, thank you so much for inspiring me. I really appreciate your work. Have I heard back? No. Do I care? No. I just hope it reaches him and lets him know that he's appreciated. Everybody wants to feel appreciation and, feel good about the stuff that they're doing.
Well, and that is an important point here that he makes in the book, is like, you can't do it with like an expectation of always getting something back. Like you will sometimes, but that will take away from some of it if you have this expectation. But I can personally attest too that like, as someone who does, like I do sports content for a living and have done, going back basically my entire adult life, I've been doing a radio show or TV or something. And it's like, you very rarely hear from somebody who's just giving you praise. It's mostly people disagree with something that you say or something that you've done. Like you get lots of angry people disagreeing. It's lovely when you get somebody. I mean, it happened to me the other day where I got a nice email from somebody who was like thanking me for the work I've done and something I wrote and how thoughtful it was. And I was just like, okay, thank you for recognizing that. Like, it's very nice. And every once in a while I will feel bad. I'll realize, oh shoot, someone sent me that like 2 weeks ago and I haven't responded or whatever. So it's not always that someone's blowing you off. Obviously, like Malcolm Gladwell's a big deal. He's probably got all sorts of letters coming in, but that doesn't mean that it didn't like make an impact in his day at one point in time. And I was actually inspired by this book. I sent someone a DM. I had just read a nice sports ball article that I thought was very, very thoughtful. And I was like, hey man, I really appreciate like the joy you bring to this and how that comes through in your work, because it totally does, and had a really cool DM exchange.
Nice.
So it's great.
I love it. There's a story here that really hit me hard about this. The author, David, it calls upon this older gentleman who he knew from a past life, or maybe they used to work together or something. And the old man, of course, was slowly dying. He was on the tail end of his life. And the old man's wife called David and said, the telephone almost never rings for him anymore. And it's like, this guy, the old man, was probably at the top of his game, in his 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever. And everyone always wanted a piece of his time. He probably had meetings back to back all the time. And then the second that he retires or starts dying, he's like totally forgotten. And David's simple act of just calling him and checking in, saying, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? What's new? Made a huge difference in this old man's life. And the old man's wife certainly appreciated it too.
That was really cool. That is a hard-hitting one, man.
All right, chapter 3. There's this super dope quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which I hadn't heard before. And he says that rings and jewels are not gifts, but apologies for gifts. The only gift is a portion of thyself. And then David Dunn says almost anything in the world can be bought for money except the warm impulses of the human heart. They have to be given, and they are priceless in their power to purchase happiness for two people, the recipient and the giver. And if I think about some of the best gifts that I've ever been given, they weren't things. they were a compliment or someone's time, or if I was feeling down or if I was sick and they took care of me. It was literally a piece of themselves. It was their time and their energy. And yeah, I mean, that truly is the greatest gift.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember, this may be a little corny, but I still remember a girlfriend I had in college.
Oh,
way back when. I still feel like it's like the best gift. Certainly, I've been given by a significant other. Didn't cost a dime. It was a full. It was like a full 8x10, whatever, your regular piece of paper, but just like a collage, like a drawing where every inch was filled up, and it was all like little inside jokes of stuff. And I was just like, that was so cool that I remember it. I mean, it's probably been 17, 18 years later or whatever, because it was just very thoughtful and you could tell it took some time, and it was not going and buying me, like a Blink 182 album or whatever I wanted at the time, So I think that to me underscores in my life, like how important that can be. So like take the time to be thoughtful for something.
You going to write her a thank you? Be thoughtful.
Well, I'm sure I did at the time. But he says, David talks about later in the book,
doing a second thank you.
The double thank you. The double thank you. Oh, no.
All right. We won't mention her name. She might be getting a note here soon. If she's married, her husband might not be thankful or appreciative of it. Hey, whatever. It's okay. All right. A little later on in this chapter, and this was a thought that I had too. Again, my first thought reading this book was like, okay, so we're all just going to give everything away and like we'll all live in communes and, just all live in poverty. And distinctly, that answer is no. And David absolutely hates people who believe in that philosophy. And so he gets actually the scathing letter from a woman whose husband was giving away all of their possessions and basically had them living in poverty. So this book actually started as it was like a short form story, I think, or maybe some sort of like article that he wrote in a newspaper. And then people sort of caught on and he turned it into a book. And so this woman was writing to him for the newspaper, like, I hate you because my husband is giving away all of our stuff. And he responds and says, I have no patience with such giving. When it comes to money and material things, I believe the needs of one's family should always come first. A person has no right to give away things which belong to others, even in the name of generosity. This book is about giving yourself.
Not a Peter Pan fan, then, I guess, right? Take from the rich, give to the poor.
Right. Okay, so chapter 4 starts out, he says, you have to train yourself to obey giving impulses on the instant before they get a chance to cool. When you give impulsively, something happens inside of you that makes you glow. Sometimes for hours. Act now.
Yeah, this is so good because this applies across the board. This is now we've gone beyond. This is transcended. Just try giving yourself away. This is everything we read in all the self-help books. Like you got to take action, you got to act. Don't sit there and hesitate and let it sit. And I've definitely found that now where like I pay attention more to like little impulses that you have, and it's really easy to just ignore it for a second. And once you do, then you're like, well, I've already kind of passed the person down the road. Like, what am I getting? Then it's so much harder to do than if you just can get in the habit. And it's easier said than done. I mean, you got to work at it. But if you get in the habit of just doing it instantly, just don't think about it. Just go do it. Like it becomes way, way easier.
Dude, 3 times a week, I drive my daughter to school, and because we arrive at the same time. At the same time, this guy that works for the city is driving in a truck, and he's watering these hanging plants from the light posts that are along this like main street of where her school is. And I'm sure it's a super thankless job. But those pots make the city feel so much like more warm and welcoming. And so the other day, I'm like, how many times have I driven past this guy and watched him watering and been like, damn, like I'm glad he's doing that, right? These things are right. I turn the car around in the middle of the road. I drive back over to him and I stop the car and I roll my window down and I just say, thank you for doing what you're doing. And it's all because of this book.
Wow.
I'm like, this dude probably never gets a compliment. Right? I'm sure superiors don't give a shit. Like he's just doing his job. But I'm like, man, thank you for doing what you're doing. Like, this makes the community a much nicer place to be and to live in. And he basically just said, thanks. You probably wonder who the hell I was. But regardless, like, I don't know if he appreciated it or not, but this book compelled me to do it. And there's also a story right after this. And you think about like, I don't have anything to give, or like, it's a really tough time right now. How can I possibly do this? He talks about giving during, again, this book's written in the 1940s, the wartime gas shortage. So people bitching about gas prices today, and yeah, I get it. It can be hard and gas prices are high. Imagine having no gas, none.
Yeah.
Right, he's living through a freaking wartime scenario where there is no gas and he is still finding ways to give of himself.
Well, it was a great story too, where it's like about the importance of action, because he said he sees this woman like walking up a hill and like lugging a bunch of stuff because she doesn't have gas to drive. It was like groceries, I think. So imagine someone carrying like bags and bags of groceries like uphill, and he was like trying to talk himself out of it. Like, oh, she probably lives just around the corner or whatever. And he finally decides to act on the impulse and stop. And she actually lived right by him and had a long way to go and was super grateful for it. And I was like, yeah, perfect example of that. But also, to your point, like, hey, back in the day, they literally were walking 3 miles barefoot uphill to get groceries, apparently. So, you know.
Yeah. All right. So chapter 5, this whole chapter was phenomenal, I felt. And I'm going to paraphrase basically that reasons people give of themselves, you know, for moral reasons or religious duty or whatever. And David basically just like shoots back and he's like, look, I respect those motives, but I took up giving away as a hobby because I found that it made my life more exciting and it broadened my circle of friends. I became a happier person. So people tell me, oh, you're so unselfish or you're so generous or whatever. And he says, I refuse to be considered those things. I literally am just a businessman with a hobby. And if you decide to take up this hobby in a serious way, you need to follow 2 steps. The first one, never forget that the little giving impulses are just as important as the big ones. More important in a way, for they help you form the habit of giving yourself away. And 2, start your giving away as early in the morning as possible. Do something for someone else. Do something for, hell, even for yourself. Try giving something nice away to yourself in the morning. And it's going to set your whole day up for success.
Well, I feel like this ties very closely into something we were talking about in the last book, The Magic of Thinking Big, where it was like, be the person that introduces yourself to people. I mean, this is like a perfect way to introduce yourself to more people, to just come across more people, be less lonely out in the world. You have an excuse. This is the way to break the ice in conversation, whether it's the guy that's hanging pots or whatever, like you just go up and thank them for that. Now you've opened the door for a conversation.
Yeah.
And most of the time people are going to be pretty receptive, especially if you're coming in being nice. Like, everybody wants to hear nice things about themselves. Everybody wants to talk about themselves. So there you go. Hey, how long have you been doing that? Like putting these pots up or whatever. There's a conversation. So very easy to see how the more and more you do this, the more interesting your life is going to get.
Chapter 6, this wonderful quote says, it is virtually impossible to give yourself away without getting back more than you give, provided you give away with no thought of any reward. As Seneca, the Roman philosopher, wrote, there is no grace in a benefit that sticks to the fingers. That is a badass quote. I think that is just so cool. This is hard as hell to do, though. Like, giving yourself away, doing something for someone else. And then like, I would expect that they would say, thank you, right? Like give you some sort of appreciation, but like that shouldn't be the goal here. You should just do it because it's the right thing to do. And so I love that concept. As hard as it is to do, I firmly believe in that concept.
I hadn't even thought about the fact that you're like, I was thinking of it in the sense of like expecting them to like, compliment you back or like, but even just like an acknowledgement, being like, you got to do it without the expectation of an acknowledgement, because sometimes that's probably going to happen. Like there are going to be some people who don't care about it and you just got to get over it. But also if you don't make that your expectation, then I guess there's nothing really to get over.
Yeah.
So you're right. It is difficult.
Chapter 8 has this brilliant idea. He says, each morning a businessman formulates a short paragraph of personal news or comment outside the realm of business, which he has his secretary add to nearly all his letters for the day. As a result, his correspondence has a warmth and friendliness rare in the business world. Again, 1940s. And here we are today, right? How often do we have these like super sanitized, ultra corporate, right? No personality.
ChatGPT written.
Yeah. Even worse now with the AI stuff. I love this idea. It's something that I've been doing, not consciously because of this, but just over years. I do it. I have a regular monthly LinkedIn newsletter that I write, and I have a section in there that's just like, what am I up to? And I throw personal stories in there about whatever, my family or travel or whatever, but this show that we're doing, right? That kind of stuff. And like, that is the one thing that people say they always appreciate. Like if they don't read the rest of the newsletter, that is the one thing that they do read, is just like, who is the guy behind this? Right? Like we're humans. We want to connect with other humans. I love that.
Yeah, 100%. I find the same thing in like the sports casting world. Like a lot of when I was doing a radio show, that's when I feel like it really took off, was when we started to get a little more off the rails in talking about just goofy, like talking about things going on in our lives. Like people want to know what you're going on, and it's relatable when you talk about things that you're doing or you're dealing with. It's very relatable to other people, and it forms a way deeper connection than it does if you're just you're only talking about the offensive line and how it's going to go this way, right? Like people want to know what's going on in your life.
My favorite passage in the whole book is in this chapter. And David writes, it is so easy to confuse our daily busyness with our daily business. Many of us earn our living in business, but waste much of the rest of our time on busyness that profits us little. Time was intended to be used in the pursuit of happiness. The aim of all of us should be to both give and get the greatest possible enjoyment from every 60 seconds of our lives. And Zig has this whole concept of activity or accomplishment. Are you just being busy to be busy, or are you actually trying to do something? David Schwartz and the magic of thinking big. Life is something that's meant to be lived. Make it the best version of the life that you can, because you only have one shot. I should probably frame this quote and put it on my wall. I loved it so much.
It is really good, and it drives home the point of, like, how much time are we wasting throughout the day just scrolling on the phone? I mean, mostly that I feel like that's where most wasted time is these days in 2026, which is a different concept than it was back when this book was written. But you may feel like you're getting some enjoyment out of that, but like that you're not. Like, go live life. Go notice other people. There's another point he makes later on in the book about just how important it is to like notice your surroundings. Pull yourself out of the phone. You'll enjoy life more. I promise.
Chapter 9, got to shout out Kansas and a Wizard of Oz quote with the old lion. Courage is one of the really rare gifts. And I would never think about courage as a gift, but he talks about it in this frame of a board member for a company who always took the principled stance about decisions, regardless of how uncomfortable or how unliked he would be. And the person talking about this board member said that he insisted that we always make the right decision. It might not be the popular one. It might be the one that gets you the most, chastising, but having the courage to step up and speak out and do what you feel is right is an incredible gift that you can give. So great reminder.
I think too, it just takes courage to be doing all of this in the first place, right? As we discussed, like the fear of what is going to happen will hold you back. So that's again, to give this gift to people, it's going to take courage.
Chapter 14. Anytime we find ourselves in a group of people who are talking about a friend or neighbor or fellow worker, if someone starts to disparage, we can so easily say something kind, or at least tolerant. And we've heard this one over and over. Be a positive force. Surround yourself with positive people. Don't gossip. Don't talk shit. Great example, right? Like, there's a neighbor that's in our neighborhood that people just, there's always something weird happening, right? The cops might show up or whatever's going on. And all the neighbors are always like, oh, what's he doing? What's the, this guy's been the nicest guy to me. Like, never had a single problem. He's super giving of himself, quite honestly. And I always try to make a point like, yeah, he's a little quirky, he's got some stuff going on, but like, hey, he did this thing for me, or he's doing these. Always try to be that positive force. Yeah.
And it's crazy how much you notice now people do this like all the time. Like, we just love it. And it makes me think of a story recently when I was, now granted, this was a little more in a sports context, but it was kind of like attacking a coach's character from someone. And I was just like, I don't know. When I've talked to the guy, he's like the nicest dude ever. Like, and then like, oh no, it's just all fake or whatever. We had this back and forth. I just like finally dug my heels in. I was like, I'm not giving in. Like, I think this guy's a really nice guy. Like, and in the past, I might've just sort of agreed to just like get it over with. But I was like, we're going to have to agree to disagree, man. Like, I think he's a great dude. Like, I don't know why we have to sit here just hating on somebody. But it's been interesting when he talks about like, say something at least like kind of at least tolerant. Like, I've experimented with like, what are the best ways in those situations? And I do think sometimes it's a case by case basis. Like, do you just try to change the subject? Do you say something like kind of nice, or do you like dig in? And this was one of the few times where I felt like you could dig in. But sometimes I do think there are probably more graceful ways to do it, but at least just don't join in. Don't indulge.
Yeah. So chapter 20 talks about if one of the things you're going to give is a compliment, that you need to be very specific when you do it. So don't just say like, thanks for this or thanks for that, but say like, thanks for this thing because it helped me do whatever, right? Or I really appreciated this because of this, and this. And I have found this to be very true in the workplace. If you're complimenting your colleagues or somebody's work, or even I remember in dating, like the guy that's always like, oh, you're so beautiful. Right? Everyone says that crap, right? Or someone's like, oh, wow, like, you're looking great today. Like, okay, whatever. Give a specific compliment. Like, hey, I really enjoyed the way that you, whatever, put together this marketing campaign because of X, Y, and Z, not just great job. Right? If you're dating, like, hey, I really like the way that those earrings do, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what it is, right? I've been out of the game for a long time now.
Well, you're not still giving those compliments to your wife?
Yeah, good point. I need to do that. I need to do that. That's a good. When I get home, I'm going to do that.
There we go.
Yeah.
David Dunn, changing lives still in
Dunn,
2026, man.
Thank you, Dunn. Thank you. All right, so chapter 22, banger of a quote here. To realize what an acceptable gift we bestow when we give our close attention and interest to other people's hobbies and experiences, we have only to recall what pleasure we get when we encounter a good listener who seems genuinely interested in our travels, our garden, our library, or in being shown whatever it is we collect. He makes us relive our experiences enjoyably. We warm up to him and come to look upon him as a true friend. Listening is everything, and I've always wondered why we aren't taught listening as a skill. We're taught writing, reading, public speaking, finance, right? All these other things, but like listening is a huge one, and it makes such a big difference in people's lives. And we literally just talked about this in the magic of thinking big. All right, listening is a big deal. People are going to warm up to you. You're going to have better relationships. You're going to have better friendships. Like everything around you is going to be better if you just take genuine interest in other people and listen.
And
to what they have to say.
That is a part of it too. Like take genuine interest, like ask them questions about it, not just like sit there and wait until they're done talking, but tell me more about this. How long have you been doing it? Like it's very easy to do that. And generally he makes the point that like he was really bored by the idea of, I forget what the guy's hobby was. He was hanging out at someone's house and he collected
like
stuff.
Butterflies or have some insects or I don't know what it was.
Something that did sound kind of boring. And you'd be like, all right, do I really want to? But he was like, I'm going to try and like get into this. He kind of forced himself to be like, okay, yeah. And like, I'm going to try and be genuinely interested. And he said by the end of it, he actually was. And I do think there's some truth to that. Maybe not everything, but like if you give it a legitimate effort and a legitimate try, like the more you learn about something, the more interesting it probably is, as opposed to just being shut off and like, oh, I'm going to, and another thing I hear a lot about these days is I think a natural tendency is you listen to someone and you figure out what you're going to say next. And then you're just like waiting for your spot to say it instead of like actually trying to listen. And sometimes you can listen. And then even if you take a beat to like take it all in before you respond to it, like, I mean, that's just so much better than being ready to go wherever you're going with the conversation. Or 7 Habits, I know is talked about, like, you'll try to project your story and your lens, like your experience onto that story. And instead of doing that, like just listen to them and ask more questions and like try to be present. Like, yeah, it's a skill for sure. And we are not taught it. And it's something that I have had to try to get better at over the years by just realizing like, okay, I need to take more of an interest in other people.
Yeah.
Like, nobody really cares what I think about this, or at least they don't until you've taken the time to truly listen to them and give them a reason to care about it.
2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. Yes. Okay. So chapter 23, I really enjoyed this and the next chapter for a specific reason. So the quote is, I reminded myself that New York City was not City Hall or the skyscrapers or the Brooklyn Bridge or Greenwich Village or Grand Central or Fifth Avenue or Harlem or Central Park or the East River or the Battery. New York is its people, starting with each of its citizens as individuals. I told myself, and so is every other city, big or little. This is facts. The best places I have ever visited, I have ever lived, and I have traveled freaking everywhere, and I've lived in multiple countries. The best ones I've ever been to involve 2 things. 1, great weather is always helpful. You don't want to be in a gloomy spot. But even so, if there's great people, it makes up for everything else. Like, sure, architecture is cool. Yes, the way a city is laid out is cool. Like, yes, the food might be fantastic. I have always found it comes down to the people I meet, the conversations I have, how warm they are, how open they are, how welcome they are, how much they're willing to share their culture with me, those types of things. Man, it makes everything. And it's literally just individuals. They're individual people. It's individual conversations. It's individuals that make these things happen. And I cannot stress that enough, how important it is that you think about where you live, your community, your city, your whatever, that you are a part of it and you can make the difference in your community, right? It starts with you.
I actually really liked an example of this in my life recently was I went to Dallas, and this was just last week, went to Dallas area. And I was like, I go there a lot for like usually once or twice a year for sports business related purposes. And I'm always like, it's not my favorite, it's kind of sprawling. And like, it's typically, I think of it as like not my vibe. So I went into it a little bit like, hey, I'm just here for get in, get out. I'm here to do what I need to do. This hotel I was at, and I understand that they're a hotel and their business is hospitality, but like these people were so nice. From the moment I walked in, like the person at the front desk who was like taking care of me, like went over the top. And then I went to the hotel bar. I needed food and it was almost closed. They stayed open a little extra to get me some food and were so nice and talking to me. And then they had a shuttle that would take me to where I needed to go. And the guy that drove the shuttle struck up a conversation with me and was just like the nicest dude ever. And I left something where I went when he had driven me back. He took me back, no questions asked. Like, just the people made a huge difference. And I was like, man, okay, I got to stop like coming in with this idea of like, oh, it's Dallas. It's going to just be whatever. And I need to get in and out of there. Like, the people did make a genuine difference.
For sure.
Yeah.
Did you write him a thank you? Leave him a review?
I didn't. Well, yes, I did.
Okay.
I did.
All right.
Because they reached out first. They will text you and be like,
hey, oh, sure. Yeah.
I was like, hey man, I told them about the guy that drove me. And
perfect,
like, you know, so I tried to do what I could. Yes.
Perfect. David talks about this story when he was visiting Cairo, and this guy in Cairo, this random citizen of Cairo, a stranger, walked 2 blocks with him one Sunday morning, he says, a few years ago, to make sure I found the address that he was going to that he had on a slip of paper. And he says, in spite of all the criticism of the Egyptians, I don't know why, maybe in the 40s, we were, I don't know, Egyptians, you got me. He says, that Sunday morning courtesy has left me with a memory of Cairo as a friendly city. One human being. John knows this story. I wrote it in my book. I lived in Brazil earlier on in my career, and one morning I got lost in a pretty what's considered a dangerous part of town. And I ended up stumbling into a guy who was a street vendor. He had a cart on the side of the road, and he effectively took me in, obviously kept me safe while I was there. But the conversation I had with him completely changed the trajectory of my career in many ways. And that individual, he doesn't have any idea. And I don't know how I would ever find him again, but he made a huge difference in my life. And it was only probably 20 minutes worth of conversation. And just that in and of itself, it is the Cairo story. Like, this guy, total stranger, took care of me, made sure I was fine. We had a great conversation, and it was life-changing. And you could be that for other people. I thought about the World Cup. We just hosted it here in Kansas City. Like, I live a little too far away to really be involved in those activities, but like, I hope that we as Kansas Cityans were open and welcome and helping people out that were coming to visit.
Well, I'm gonna jump ahead just a little bit here, because you used the quote, and we should never forget that our nation and the world is merely a multiplication of local communities. That's where I was going to bring up the World Cup, where I was like, it's been really heartening for me to see, like, we all in America, so many people are like crapping on the country right now, which, like, I understand that there's a lot of stuff going on that makes people unhappy, and even just across the world. Like, it just seems like everybody, you know, especially the proliferation of social media, it's always just dumping on this place or that place or these people, this people. Having the World Cup here was amazing. I mean, not just in Kansas City where we're at, but seeing all these there were so many stories on, this is where being on like sports Twitter and social media got me a lot of this, but there were so many cool stories about people from overseas experiencing just stuff as mundane as like experiencing like Waffle House and Buc-ee's, like, and just loving it. And like, I didn't see like a single negative story. And then Americans being like, whoa, like, look at this in Kansas City, the Netherlands have this giant orange army that just like marched through downtown with like 20,000 people. And everyone's like, whoa, okay, this is cool. Like, it brought everybody together, because it became about like, this is not me talking about someone online. Like, you're face to face and seeing it in person and seeing the tradition and the communities that they have. And like, it sounds so corny, man, but it's cool. It's legitimately cool. And we are just a collection of all these local communities with different idiosyncrasies and traditions and all that stuff. And if you take the time to actually like experience that, you can't be negative with it, man. You really can't be. And so the more we can do that, the better it's going to be. And that's how giving yourself away is a way to experience some of that.
Definitely. Speaking of the challenges people are having on a global level, particularly with politics or politicians, Chapter 25, there's this quote: in the realm of politics, we are all too ready to criticize our elected representatives and our civil servants when what they do displeases us, but we seldom think to commend them for actions which we approve. When do we ever give someone thanks for this bill that they passed or something they did in the community? Where, like, you don't. But the second that they do something that pisses you off, everyone is up in arms and wants to, you know, not reelect them or whatever. And it's like, dude, just send a nice note to someone. Like, they need affirmation too. They're probably trying to do the best job they can. Like, we have no idea what they're going through and why the decision that they're making. Like, we have no idea. So just try to be nice, people.
Yeah. Right? I mean, can you imagine being a politician these days?
Oh my God,
like,
it'd be terrible. It'd be terrible.
It's got to be 1,000 to 1, the negative to positive comments. Yeah.
Horrible. Yeah. Horrible. All right. So chapter 28, here's a good way to sort of, at least in my mind, think about this concept of giving yourself away. It struck me one day that, along with most everybody else, in talking with people, in my reading, and in watching TV, I had fallen into the habit of reacting first to the things I disagreed with in what was being said. But in a very short time, I found myself intrigued by the challenge of finding a point of agreement to start with. And I have found that disagreeing, even vehemently, on other points is much less painful if we have agreed on something at the start. I haven't incorporated this in my day-to-day yet, but I feel like I need to do this. And I need to find a way to sort of check if I'm thinking about the things I disagree with first. But how true is that? Like regardless of how different you might be, how the differences that you have with someone, like if you find something that you both agree on, like conversations in theory are going to go a lot better.
Yeah. And finding a way to be able to be okay with disagreeing on a point with somebody. And it's not they don't have to be the exact same. And that's actually good for you. Like I think back to Magic of Thinking Big. He goes through a whole section about, I think Zig Ziglar did too. It's good to be like, if you're a Democrat, be friends with Republicans, which I know people really don't want to do that kind of thing right now. But find people who are different than you and be around them. It goes back to the culture conversation too. Find people who live differently than you, and you'll take things from them, and it'll make you become a better, more well-rounded person. And if you learn how to do that and be like, hey, we may not agree on this, but that's okay. Like, that's totally cool. People that are a different religion than you, all these different things. I just think it makes you so much more effective of a person. Mm-hmm. The other thing that really strikes to me is it's being on YouTube and creating content. Like one of the easiest kind of hacks is like rage bait. Like you're trying to get people upset with you. And like some of it is just the name of the game. And if it's a little more trivial, I was talking to a guy in the college football industry the other day. It was like, sometimes we do put out a list of the most overrated teams in college football as like a rage bait sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, like that, at least it's like, that's not that serious. Like I understand that, but it's all over the place. If you look at it, people just trying to drive people to disagree with them. Yeah. And it just perpetuates that. We got a lot of that going on right now.
There's the Jim Rohn little motivational speech that we both listened to a week or two ago. And he's talking about he's talking to this audience and he's saying, does it really make a difference if there's a Republican president? No. Yeah. Does it really make a difference in your life if it's a Democrat? No. Right. And he's going on like, if the economy is bad, no. He's like, these things really don't make that big of a difference in your life. What makes a difference is how you're interacting with individuals one-on-one. And so that's what you need to focus on. And I thought that was so true. All right. So chapter 30, this quote, never assume that anything wrong has to stay that way. It is an old saying that what is everybody's business is nobody's business. Whenever anything in everybody's business category comes to my attention, I do whatever I can about it. I have found endless opportunities. And this story he talks about was that there was this pothole in front of an elderly woman's house in the city that he was living in. And every time that a car ran over it, or apparently it was big enough that it would kind of like shake the street or cause the cars to make motion or whatever. And she was, pretty sick, and it was really affecting her mental health and her physical health. And so he called the city and was like, hey, can you guys do something about this? And a week or two later, I guess they came in and fixed it. And I don't know how common that is, but assuming the story is true, which I believe it is, like he saved her a ton of stress. And you see a pothole and we drive past them all the time and we're just like, oh yeah, that's just how
you just complain about
how things are, right?
Yeah.
It's everybody's business, so it's nobody's business. And he's like, no, I was going to do something about it. So I love that story.
Yeah. You can at least make an attempt. I think he did another one about a stoplight that was way too short in the city, and they got that changed. I also, I love talking about like community building. A story that he told about a lady who said to her husband, like, hey, I want to do something about introducing new people to town. Like I want to make them feel more welcome. And so everybody gets to know him. And he was like, well, why don't you go down to the paper and offer to like interview them and write something about them? And she did. So when someone new moved to town, and obviously, you have to be a smaller community for this, but what a cool idea. Like you go and interview them and then they run something in the paper like, hey, here's the new neighbors. Here's a little info about them. And then that can break down some barriers so the more people
why don't we do this in our neighborhoods? Like there's probably been 4 or 5 houses that have been sold, whatever in the last year or two in my neighborhood. And like, I don't know these people. Shame on me. Right.
Well, same here, man. It's like neighbors. I know most of the neighbors like right around me, but even then I wish we talked more.
Yeah.
Like it's, we don't do a whole lot of that anymore.
Yeah. All right. So chapter 31, if you remember us talking about this whole idea about manifesting a parking spot with the book, The Secret, and how I mentioned that I think that's a really poor example of manifesting something. Dunn takes that whole concept around a parking spot a step further in the best way possible, which I had never thought about. And he talks about giving your parking spot away. And the quote was that someone probably needs your parking spot more than you. And he talks about how he saw a parking spot that was right in front of the place he needed to go. And he decided, you know what, someone probably needs that more than I do. So he decided to park like 2-3 blocks away. Not only was it great because when he came back, he saw a woman with young kids who was like really struggling to get them out of the car and get into the place they needed to go. And like, obviously that clearly helped her having that parking spot, but he also got exercise, right? He got to walk the extra 3 blocks or whatever it was, which was good for him. And Zig obviously would be happy. Mr. From what was it? Lard to hard, right? Losing his weight. But yeah, someone else probably needs it more than you, like be it an elderly person, a person with a family, right? Somebody that's handicapped, whatever that is. Like, yeah, I'm able-bodied. Like I don't need that spot. For sure, is it convenient? Yeah, but like someone else might need it more than me. I'm going to give it away. Simple example.
100%. And this is where, I have so much respect for the pastor at the church that I go to. Adam Hamilton would always talk about this, where he's like, if you're a member of the church, remember to take the bad parking spots. Like you got to park at the back. We leave the rest for people who either need them or are guests, and like try giving yourself away, like lay out the red carpet for them as opposed to making them feel like they got to be the one taking the last spot in the back. Because you think about it like a guest, like they may not be there as early. They're probably coming in a little bit later. So try and leave some spots up at the front for them. I like that philosophy a lot in terms of just being pretty well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So chapter 33, another really simple example, and this is definitely true for me, and I imagine for you and most of the people that are listening to this. In the world's attics, basements, cupboards, and bureau drawers are millions of dollars worth of perfectly good things. Furniture, clothing, linens, curtains, tools, toys, baby things, luggage, electrical equipment, cooking utensils, porch and garden furniture. And they're just taking up room, collecting dust year after year. They're not serving us, and in most cases might better be given to someone who can use them now. Everything we have is really loaned to us. We can't take anything with us when we depart. If we have no use for a thing, we should pass it on to someone else who can use it now. And he talks about this idea of a mustache cup.
Do you know what that was?
No, I had no idea. So I had to look that up. But literally, it's like a cup that has this little part over where you sip to protect your mustache from like getting, whatever, the coffee or foam or whatever on your mustache. Okay. Like, all right, that's news to me. He talks about giving away the mustache cup because I guess this guy didn't have a mustache. So what the hell do you need a mustache cup for? But I have tons of shit in my house that I look at and I'm like, books too, especially. Like I should just be giving away this stuff. Like, yeah, other people are going to need it. It could be inspirational for them. It could be whatever. And like, it's just the right thing to do.
Oh, 100%. Like I was literally thinking my mom brought some stuff over the other day. I was like, I don't know that I really have room for this. And then I was like, I should probably get rid of some things. Like, there are so many things. He had a couple of great examples in there of somebody getting, again, old, outdated, but it was like silver spoons or something, got a new set of them, realized he already had a set. So he gave it to like the housekeeper or somebody like that who could use it. And they really appreciated it. That type of stuff can be really, really impactful to people. I think about even one time on Facebook Marketplace when I was getting ready to move, I knew I was getting a new bed, a new mattress, and perfectly fine, like good queen size mattress, big mattress. But I was like, I'm just going to give it away. Like, I just need someone to come get it. Really, the motivation for me was I need this out of here quick. So it wasn't this, like, I'm not going to say it was this altruistic thing, but I will never forget, like, this older woman came to pick it up and had a guy who helped her get it out there. But she was like so stoked about it, like so happy to have this big mattress and tell me about like how much of a difference this was going to make for her. And that was pretty impactful to hear. I was like, damn, okay. Like to me, it was just this like whatever frivolous, like, let me get this out of here. But it made a huge difference to her. So yeah, I think this is a great way to do it.
We talked about it a little early in the episode, but chapter 35, this whole concept of a second thanks makes a lot of sense. And I'd heard it phrased another way a couple years ago. Somebody said, you should always give 2 thanks for someone who gives you a gift. The first is when you get it. So thanks for giving me this thing. And according to David, be more specific than that. Just thanks for this thing. Secondly, though, when you're actually using it, thank them again. Or when you remember getting that thing, thank them again. And so this reminded me, one of my relatives gave us it's got like basically a nursing chair, a rocking chair for my daughter's nursery when she was younger. We still have it in there. I sit in it every night and read a book or tell my daughter a story. And after we wrap up here, I'm going to send them a text and be like, hey, just, it's been 3.5 years now. Like, thank you for saying it. I use it all the time. And I think I don't know, I guess I shouldn't care if they appreciate that comment or not, but I have a feeling that they will.
Yeah. Again, can't do it with the expectation, but I thought the other day after hearing him say that, I was like, okay, I had just talked to a guy kind of higher up in the industry than I was at right now, who was giving me some advice. And we had a coach that I was about to interview, and he was like, "Hey, I talked to him about this. This is a great like story. You can ask him about it to be a cool thing in the interview." And I could tell when I said that in the interview, I was like, "Oh, this guy kind of like he perked up a little bit." I was like, he respected that, and it was a cool thing. And so I sent him a text afterward, and I was like, "Hey, thanks for that specific thing like that. I feel like that made a real difference there." So he sent me a nice message back. I have no idea how much it actually meant to him, but I was like, that's exactly it. Like I said, thank you at the time for doing the whole conversation, but then like a specific, like, oh yeah, this actually did help. So
double thanks. Chapter 40. This passage was fantastic, and you're going to see why here in a second when I finish it. So David talks about never within the memory of any of us have the times been so troubled. Much that we read and most of the news on radio and TV tends to increase our confusion and concern.
I mean,
are we talking about 2026 or are we talking about 1946?
Like 80 years ago, man.
Exactly. So then he reads this paragraph, and he said that he was reading this story. So this is the story that he was reading. Our earth is degenerate in these latter days. Bribery and corruption are common. Children no longer obey their parents. The end of the world evidently approaches. And then David says, I shook my head. This was the gloomiest yet, I told myself. Then I read a footnote about that passage. The above doleful observation was translated from an Assyrian tablet dated 2800 BC. The world has survived for almost 5,000 years since that observation was written, through wars and revolutions, through plagues and natural calamities, through man-made booms and depressions, through hell and high water. 2800 BC, this passage about how shitty things are.
That's
you know,
it's just like that could have, I mean, if you just gave me that quote, like I totally, that could be a tweet from somebody.
Yes.
Right? Like that's a boomer Facebook update. Like that's, and it's that really was striking, man. And it is some good perspective on where again, I'm not saying that bad things aren't happening now. I'm not saying that some people feel really affected by those, but just a broader perspective, like, hey, maybe we can take a step back and chill out a little bit. I've really fully bought in on that mindset in the last like year or two, and it's made me just like 1,000 times happier.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the things, I've talked about a lot of things, I feel like in these episodes of things that have made big changes in my life that have helped me a lot. That's up there in terms of being like maybe the happiest change was to stop following everything that's happening in politics and just take a step back and live my life and make my life better. And it's great. And I find stuff out from people all the time. They'll be like, it's the best feeling when someone's like, wait,
did you hear me about that?
Like, you didn't know about that? I'm like,
no,
I didn't. I didn't. And it's great.
Exactly.
You should try it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So chapter 41, this quote, we permit too many opportunities for happiness to slip by us because we labor under two major delusions. One of these delusions is that we shall be happy when. This is so true. So when we get a car, when we get a job, when we get a house, when we get the girlfriend or boyfriend, when we recover from an illness, when we have more money, et cetera, et cetera. Think about all those things. Doubtless we shall become somewhat happier when, but not as much happier as we think. Life has a way of presenting new complications and conjuring up new wants as fast as the old ones are satisfied. The only way we can ensure happiness in these troubled times is to train ourselves to be happy in spite of, rather than because of, what life does to us. When we succeed in doing this, we become adult. You an adult, John?
Much more so than I used to.
That's
be.
Good.
Much more so than I used to be. Tough lesson to learn too, man. But it's like happiness is the journey. It is not the destination. It is that is such a tough thing to get your mind around, and I understand. But it is not this map you're like going down and you finally arrive at this. You pick up so many things along the way, like a video game, and then you have happiness. Like that is not how it works. You have to cultivate gratitude for what you have and enjoy, create some happiness with what you have. And I say that realizing as I was reading your list here, car, job, house, girlfriend, boyfriend, illness, more money, I was like, well, damn, 3 of those really hit home for me, where I sit here and think like, okay, how much better is it going to be when I have these? But right now I'm still much happier than I used to be because I've learned to find much more happiness in the mundane of everyday life and appreciate the things that I have. And you also, it's very easy to look back on. And I would say 10 years ago, if I would have told you I make the amount of money that I make, I'm where I'm at professionally, that I have a house, like all these things, I'd be like, dude, how could I not be happy if I have all that? And then you get here and it still is very easy to just be like, but if I had this or this or this. So it's just, that's constantly going to be that. Mark Manson video I was watching the other day, he was talking about the relationship between money and happiness, because he was dissecting the accuracy of the phrase, like, money can't buy you happiness. And he was like, well, it can, but only to a certain point. And it's this like if you have like next to nothing money, he used the example of oxygen. If you don't have any oxygen, oxygen's going to make a huge difference. But if you already have enough oxygen to breathe comfortably, it's not going to make that much more difference to have more oxygen. And so that's what you have to kind of wrap your head around. Like, if you're really struggling, yes, money will make you happier, but only to a certain point.
That's right.
And it's going to stop. You got to learn to be happy on your own.
Okay. We're in the rating section.
Yep.
Here we go. I gave it a 6.9.
Nice.
I'm already thinking every day about how to be more giving. And so it's had an impact on me for sure. I mean, literally, like, every day since I've read this book, it's like, damn, I should do that. Or like, oh, I have this impulse. All right, I'm going to act on it. I'm going to do something. Like some of the other books, it felt a bit repetitive, but it was easy to put down and pick up at will. And so I could just kind of flip through it and like read. That made it so that I couldn't get through it as quickly. But it was nice that I didn't feel like, damn, this chapter is 30 pages and it's kind of a slog. I could just bang through it and be done. So I would recommend this to people who are looking for inspiration on how to live a life that's more fulfilling overall. But I don't know, maybe after recording this, I would say like it is a classic and it deserves to be a classic and people should read it. But time will tell. We'll see. Definitely has an impact on me, but time will tell. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Part of the reason I want to will it to being a classic is because, like I said, if you can't get it on your Kindle, you have to find like a used version of it on eBay, basically, if you want the book. The audiobook is nice, so I would highly suggest that. But it just feels like it has been a bit forgotten, and I think it's just as relevant today as it ever has been. So I liked it a lot. I gave it a 7.1. You are right, a bit repetitive, but I do think there's something to that in all these books. You almost have to be a bit repetitive it's like all the repetition we talked about that Zig and Og Mandino would talk about, like to get it ingrained in your brain, it kind of has to be. So I think there's a purpose to that. But this was delightful. I can't recommend the audiobook enough again, because just it's a nice pick me up, the tone of voice, the way it's being read, the stories that are being told. It was not what I expected at all. When you first sent it out there, I had no idea. And so when I started listening to it, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a nice change. I really like this. And I think it's a great way to, it's so easy to get stuck in our heads about the problems and stuff that we are thinking about right now. And once you pop this in, it's like, okay, let me just take a step back and start thinking about other people more. And it's a really good way to kind of get out of your own anxieties and stuff. So I was a big fan of this. Thank you, Zig Ziglar, for recommending this.
Zig.
Always comes back to Zig.
Appreciate old Zig.
Yep. Well, we read it so you don't have to. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, leave us a review, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and you may find a surprise.
We're still waiting for our first comment.
Yeah. Tell us which old school book is currently gathering dust on your nightstand that you would like us to review. For Adam, I'm John. Thanks for listening to The Classics.